Welcome everybody, this is Niclas Huschenbeth and today I would like to show you the game Anish Giri against reigning world champion Magnus Carlsen from the 8th round of the Shamkir Gashimov Memorial 2018. The game has just finished and I want to bring it to you right now. So, before we begin, as always, let's read the comment of the day. And the comment of the day is by Martin Pereira Villa, and he says, very good analysis, keep going that way with the channel, is very instructive. Thank you, Martin, and I hope that this analysis will also be instructive and useful for you guys to improve your chess understanding. So, Giri and Carlsen, they always have a special kind of relationship. Giri beat Carlsen in his very first game, when in their first encounter. And since then, for a very long time, Carlsen was unable to beat Giri until 2016 in the Bilbao Masters. Finally, Carlsen equalized the score. But there's always a lot of banter going on between the two. And Giri is very witty and is teasing Carlsen a lot. And also in January, there was some Twitter banter and it was getting a little bit out of hand, it felt like. So there's some drama and, well, we'll see if they can resolve their conflicts over the chessboard. So let's begin. Giri starts with the English, plays c4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, knight c6. Interestingly, the same opening Carlsen used round one earlier against Topalov. Now g3, Carlsen played a different move here. d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop g2. So we have a reversed Dragon Sicilian here on the board. So white plays the Dragon with Sicilian. Knight b6, the knight goes out of the center. Bishop e7, a3. This is a very common move in this position to prepare b4. And Carlsen plays not the main move here, which is castle, but he goes a5. And let's actually turn on the engine. Why not? So you can see on the bar on the left is telling you the current evaluation of the position. a5 is stopping b4 obviously, but it has some drawbacks and we'll see those drawbacks later in the game. d3, castle, bishop e3, and now it becomes apparent. White has always the option now to take on b6 and black has to take back with the c pawn. With the pawn still on a7 he could take back with the a7 pawn, that would be more natural. So that's the drawback. On the other hand, white is not able to expand on the queen side with b4 and put more pressure there. So, rook c1 was played. Actually here maybe you could take immediately and then play queen a4 to not allow what happened in the game. That would be just a different kind of position, a little bit quieter and not allowing black from playing a4 as it happened in the game right here. And now it becomes very sharp because in many lines black is sacrificing this pawn on a4. Giri goes knight d2, is stopping bishop b3. He could have also taken on b6 immediately, but he didn't want to yet. f5, Carlsen is threatening to go f4, e4 in certain situations. And now Giri takes on b6 and takes on a4. So he wins a pawn. On the other hand, black is having active piece play here. Bishop g5. This is threatening to take on d2 and take on a4, threatening to win a piece. So white brings back the knight. And you know the saying probably, knight on the rim is dim, so you want to bring it back into the game. Knights are usually strongest in the center of the board where they control the most squares. And now Carlsen plays e4. And interestingly enough, this position still occurred in the game Nepomniachtchi against Aronian in Geneva 2017. And Nepomniachtchi certainly knew this position still because he had several games in this line. And he played the best move here, which is to go out of this pin playing rook b1. And he eventually won this game even though Aronian was fine. Giri chose a different move here, king h1. This is a prophylactic move against e3, so that after taking on e3, black doesn't take with check, but it seems rook b1 is a little bit stronger. Now queen d7. Now Giri goes rook b1, but black goes rook a8. And in general, this position, while it might still be around balance, as you can also see with the evaluation bar, it is much easier to play for black, and white has to solve problems all the time. So black has great compensation here for the pawn. He has the bishop pair, active pieces and more space. Now knight c4 is a mistake or inaccuracy by Giri. He should play f4, not an easy move to make. Bishop f6, now give back the pawn on d3, play rook d1, and he should be able to equalize here. So definitely not a pleasant situation here, and we'll see lots of mistakes in this complex position on both sides. Knight c4, queen f7, a good move, putting pressure on the knight, threatening to take on c4. And why can't white take on b6? Well, then black goes bishop b3, hitting the queen. Queen only has one square, and then black takes on d3, takes back with the rook, and those bishops are strong. So queen f7 threatening to take the knight. White supports the knight with b3, takes on d3, pawn takes back, and f4, black pushes forward. Also now having ideas such as to go f3 here, winning the bishop on g2. And yes, white is up a pawn, but all his pawns are pretty loose. If you look at them, the d3 pawn is a weakness being attacked. Also these pawns look pretty loose, and black, like I said, has more than enough compensation here for the pawn. Now knight e4 was played. Bishop e7, the bishop was attacked, retreats to e7. Now g takes f4, otherwise this threat of going f3 was simply too strong. G takes f4, queen takes f4, now a4, stopping black from going b5 and cementing this knight on c4, which is well placed. Both knights are well placed, but on the other hand, white has problems on the dark squares, obviously, as he is lacking the dark square bishop, and all these squares are available for the black pieces. And there's just another one which opened up after white played a4. Knight comes to b4, great square for the knight, and attacks the pawn d3. Queen e2. But now, this is what I really like, the next moves by Carlsen. He doesn't take the pawn on d3. Yes, he could win back the pawn, but this would allow white to come back into the game, play rook b d1, maybe exchange some pieces and equalize. And Carlsen plays very nicely here. He goes queen h6. Queen h6. Why this move? We'll see in a moment. Rook b d1, protecting the pawn. Now knight d5. The knight was well placed on b4, but it's even better on f4. It's just a monster on f4. And this is very nice maneuvering play here by Carlsen. He first removes the queen from f4, so the knight is able to go there soon. Well done. Now rook g1, and the position becomes very difficult to play for white. Computer maybe can still defend this, but for human it is increasingly difficult, and now this position is already close to winning. Now Carlsen played rook f4, which is a good move. Even better would have been to go rook f5 to still have the square available for the knight on f4. But also rook f4 is good. Several points here. The rook can swing over to the h file, put pressure on the pawn on h2, and black can also double on the f file. Knight e5. And now, indeed, Carlsen played rook df8, and he let his opponent off the hook here. He could have gone for rook h4, and then his position is already objectively winning. White has to cope with the mating threat. If he goes knight f3, there's bishop g4, and this pin means that white has to give up the exchange with rook takes g4, and after knight e5, rook f4, black is winning here, being an exchange up. And after f3, which covers the pawn of the queen, black can bring the knight to e3 and then just pick up the pawn on b3, and all the black pieces are on wonderful squares, and the position is winning for black here. After rook df8, that's what happened in the game. White is still able to hold everything. He plays f3 now, rook h4 and d4. Also good defending here by Giri in this phase of the game. d4 protecting the knight on e5. And now Carlsen goes knight f4, queen d2, bishop takes b3. And here Giri had a chance to get a completely unclear game. He played rook b1. That's a mistake. He needs to go rook c1 to get counterplay. That's the most important thing you need to do when you're worse, when you're getting attacked, like Giri is being attacked here with the white pieces. You need to get some play of your own, and rook c1 accomplishes that. The rook can often swing to c7. And bishop b4 looks scary, trying to distract the queen from protecting the h2 pawn, but white has queen f2 available, and you see the evaluation bar, the position is around equal, and anything can happen here, honestly. Anything can happen here. Because also those knights are not so bad either. They can hold up with the knight on f4. But Giri misses this chance, he plays rook b1 and Carlsen picks up another pawn. Actually now it's Carlsen who's up a pawn after he just picked up two of them. Bishop b5, Giri exchanges the bishops. The bishop on f1 was really a dead piece anyway, but now in this position black is up a pawn. Queen e6, here Giri makes another inaccuracy, goes queen b2. It was necessary to bring back the rook, and white still has good defending chances, even though of course position is better for black and also, more importantly, easier to play. Queen b2, bishop d8. This is also an inaccuracy by black. He can play rook a8. That would have been a strong move to come in with the rook, have ideas like rook a2, and after rook takes b6, actually rook a2 is just winning. Because if the rook takes e6, rook takes b2, there's the checkmate threat, as well as knight takes e6. But like I said before, it's a very difficult position for both sides, and mistakes are just normal in those kind of situations. Bishop d8, but now Giri makes the, I would say, decisive mistake, and it's not surprising because the right defense was incredibly hard to find. White had to go, he played knight g5, Giri, but he had to go d5 first, which is odd, right? Why would you just give this pawn? But the point is that now after knight g5, black is forced to take, whereas in the game he is not. Here he is forced to take because he needs to keep this knight protected, and his queen is under fire, so black takes, rook takes, and now there's this idea of rook takes d5 followed by an undiscovered check, so black has to go rook d8, and now white once again attacks this knight on d5, queen d2, and the point is now after, let's say, rook a4, white can liquidate into a rook endgame, which I think gives him very good drawing chance. He's down two pawns here, but the pawns are doubled and black cannot hold on to both of them, so I think this gives white good drawing chance, and it's definitely by far the best chance white had to save this game. But of course d5 followed by knight g5, this whole sequence is very much computer-esque and not easy to find at all, clearly. So Giri goes knight g5, but now Carlsen finds queen e8, a very good move, keeping an eye on the rook, also having the option of bringing the queen over to h5. Now rook b3, and Carlsen goes bishop takes g5, which is once again not the best move, but once again, as I said so many times, it's a tough position. Winning was rook f5, hits the knight, and after knight e4, black can go rook takes h2 check. King takes h2 runs into an immediate checkmate here, queen h5 and queen h4. The king is checkmated, and after queen takes h2, black has rook h5 and wins the queen. And this position is winning for black as he has the queen, and the white king is open and weak, and still white has this monster knight and also two pawns. So, and those two pawns as well. So this is winning for black. Of course, still some work has to be done, but this was the best continuation. After bishop takes, rook takes, knight e6 in the game, Giri played rook g4, and then his position is not savable anymore. Also after rook g1 it would have been hard, but this was definitely his best chance. He's down two pawns here, but he still has the knight on e5, and it's not that clear because it's also reduced material. There are not that many pawns left on the board, so white definitely has chances to save this one still. But after rook g4, black just takes off the rooks and goes queen d8, and the problem here is for white not so much that he's a pawn down, it's more so his very open white king on h1, and the black king on the other hand is safe, so let's make it green. So this is the main difference here, and that's why the position for white is so difficult. Giri goes rook h3 now, trying to somehow create counterplay, but this is not working at all. His best move was rook f3, but also then after rook takes f3, knight takes f3, queen d5. Yes, white can struggle on, but ultimately black should win this position, being a pawn up and also having excellent piece play. But at least here you exchange one of the attackers of your opponent, and you don't suffer that much under your weak king. Whereas after rook h3, black goes queen d5 check, king goes to g1, queen e4, protecting the square on g6, so no knight g6 is possible, and also bring the queen ready to deliver checkmate. Giri goes queen b4, and now Carlsen goes rook f6, and here Giri had seen enough. He doesn't have any counterplay, and he doesn't even have any sensible moves, so he resigned at this point. Yeah, fantastic game, great fight from both players, wonderful attacking game from Magnus Carlsen. There were a lot of mistakes and inaccuracies, but like I said, it's just inevitable. Even the best of the best do make mistakes in such complicated positions. But what I really liked were some maneuvers here by Magnus Carlsen, is queen h6 and bring the knight over to the best square on the board on f4, and ultimately also playing the queen back to e8 and then queen d8, and then bring the queen back into a game that had a really nice touch to it. Alright, so that was the game, Giri against Carlsen. Carlsen winning a third game in the Shamkir Gashimov Memorial, and now leading by what should be a full point, and playing good chess here. Playing good chess after a slow start. The Shamkir Memorial has heated up. Today there were a lot of decided games, and tomorrow there will be the last round, so make sure to check that out. And that's it from me. So I'll see you again very soon. Bye.